Hello, welcome to Red Clay This Month, the show that brings light to important educational issues that affect students in the Red Clay Consolidated School District in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm Dr. Judith Conway. I'm the Supervisor of Unified Arts here in Red Clay, and I'll be your host for this show. On today's show, we will be discussing the explosion of technology use in our classrooms. Years ago, students would be herded into the computer lab for a specific lesson. Not anymore. Today, every Red Clay student, grades 2 to 12, has been issued their own Chromebook laptop computer. Today, we'll talk about the ways teaching has changed to best use this ever-evolving technology. Let's jump right in. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Harold Shaw, the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Well, hello, Harold.
Hello, Judith. How are you?
Oh, great. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
So, we're talking about technology use. So, what's Red Clay's vision of how technology can improve instruction and learning?
Yeah, so Red Clay's vision for instructional technology is to create a blended learning environment in all of our classrooms. By blended learning, we really are just referring to the infusion of instructional technology with traditional classroom practices.
So, like some talking, some using the computer, some talking again, some sharing, some using the computer, that kind of stuff?
It can take a variety of forms, but really thinking about how we can leverage the Chromebook to engage students in collaboration with one another, problem solving, critical thinking, and expressing creativity in ways that traditionally were restricted by the classroom setting.
Oh, interesting. So tell us, from a different point of view, tell us what is technology? Why is it so much more than just replacing the set of encyclopedias in the classroom with Google?
Yeah, so there's absolutely a perspective from some that instructional technology is simply a resource for students to recall factual information, right? Like we would typically have done from a dictionary or an encyclopedia or maybe an atlas. However, blended learning is much greater than that. At Red Clay, we've chosen to focus on two blended learning models as a jumping off point in our one-to-one initiative. The first is the flipped classroom model. And in the flipped classroom model, teachers can actually kind of extend their instructional block by creating assignments and videos that students can view at home. So things that traditionally maybe would have been done in a whole group model in the classroom or maybe a lecture model in the classroom can now be videotaped, then viewed at home by students so that they can arrive to class with content knowledge and background information that the teacher traditionally would have had to spend instructional time building. So that's a really kind of exciting use of instructional technology. At the elementary level, that's a little different because our devices don't go home.
Right.
However, the teacher can still leverage the flipped classroom model by simply videotaping a mini lesson that students are struggling with around a concept or skill, and then using that mini lesson in the small group and center time to support students in that area.
Oh, so a student, I think what's so nice about being able to videotape things and being sure that kids have devices on which that they can view these is that, you know, I may need to see it 3 times before it starts to sink in, whereas you may only need to hear it once. And so you can move forward, and I have the resources to be able to look at it a couple times before I have to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And the second model that we're promoting is the station rotation model. The station rotation model is a model in which the teacher creates multiple learning activities and rotates students through those activities in either small groups or working in either small groups or as individuals. So that's a very common strategy at the elementary level and has been for a long time. However, with the use of instructional technology, teachers can actually use instructional software to target math, and literacy skills in those small groups using that software. So a teacher has the awareness that I'm struggling in a particular skill. They can actually assign me activities within the Chromebook at that center or station and really pinpoint the instruction for me as an individual.
Oh, excellent. So if you're having trouble with, let's say, adding and subtracting up to 20, and I'm having trouble with something else, we can be sitting side by side, but we'll each have our own practice on this math software.
Absolutely. And
nice.
in that station rotation model, that rotation through activities frees the teacher up to then do some targeted work with students that are struggling.
So she's got
as
another
well.
group that she's working with face-to-face. Great.
Correct. So
Great.
as I indicated, at the elementary level, that's been a well-established model. At the secondary level, I think we're working to support increased use of the station rotation model. But those are just two ways, I think, that instructional technology can be used, and is clearly more than just a way to look up information.
Right. Absolutely. And a very interesting way to learn, too, because I feel like I'm in charge of myself in
Correct.
terms of, this software is feeding me harder and harder problems, and I can continue with that.
Absolutely. The pacing is individualized.
Right. Whereas, without technology, that would be really difficult for a teacher to be able to handle, 22 children all individually.
Absolutely.
So back to the individual, why is it important, do you think, that kids get that exposure of learning on technology, or learning with technology, I think I should say? Yeah,
so one of the challenges, I think, for schools and school districts at this point in time is that it's a little difficult for us to project the job market going forward and what skills students will need to be successful in that job market. However, we can say with certainty that technology is going to be a part of that job market. So our one-to-one initiative is a real win for Red Clay because it allows us to deliver our traditional curriculum to students in a way that also enhances their ability to use technology as a tool, again, to collaborate with others, a tool to support their own critical thinking, and a tool to support their creativity as learners. And while we may not be able to say which job that will directly connect to, we can say with certainty that those skills will be essential for them in the 21st century.
Absolutely. And that whole idea that you expressed so eloquently, I might add, of a kid being in charge of their own learning in terms of they have learned how to learn with technology so that if when they're out of school, there's new information to be had, they'll be able to look it up and to learn it.
Absolutely. And beyond just recalling information, right, and finding information, but really being able to locate information and kind of analyze and synthesize, that information to solve a real world problem, which is what we've always been trying to do.
Right.
Now we're just using instructional technology to support that. Absolutely. Well, thank you for all that good information, Dr. Shaw. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I would like you all to please stay tuned for our next guests as we continue to explore today's topic.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here.
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey. Ready for the...
Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
next two guests are instructional technology coaches here at Red Clay, and they are Karen Amman and Courtney Kalbach. Please join me in welcoming them. Well, hey, Karen.
Hi, Judith. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Hello.
Courtney.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today, you guys.
Our pleasure,
Sure.
Judith.
So, we've been talking about instructional technology and the changes that it brings. So, what about teachers? How are we training teachers to help them incorporate this new technology into their instruction? Because most of our experienced teachers would not have had this opportunity before, having every child in front of them have a computer.
It's definitely a new world, isn't it? Courtney and I have cultivated multiple options for professional development, including one is a monthly tech night that occurs after school hours, and teachers K to 12 are encouraged to come and join us and learn about instructional strategies surrounding instructional technology. And also,
And that's a face-to-face.
that is completely face-to-face, right. And also tools that are online or built within the Chromebook apps, applications, and we get to give like a hands-on approach. In fact, this month we're doing a make it and take it in the digital tech world, which is kind of unique, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And then another approach we have is using bi-weekly webinars. Currently, we have two different themes in our webinars. One week we talk about Schoology, which is a learning management system that is available to teachers and students in grades K through 12. It kind of serves as that online classroom environment. And so we really are talking more about how to use Schoology. So it's very much click here and do this, click here to do that.
So this is how you set it up if you want the kids to have an online discussion.
Correct.
This is how you set it up if you want kids to have to take a quiz online, or if you want to give an assignment and then you want the children to submit it online. It's
Correct.
those kinds of
Exactly.
how do you do this with Schoology?
Exactly. The second theme complements it, and that is a blended learning theme, where we're really talking about, as Dr. Shaw mentioned, the different models, and then ideas and tools that can be used to implement those different models. Eventually, into the new year, we're going to merge the two, because ultimately Schoology works very nicely to enhance a blended learning classroom. And we'll be doing one webinar at that point that will focus on both blended learning as well as Schoology. And then the last opportunity that we're offering currently is kind of cohort-based. Previously, we've run things like Models of Excellence or the Pioneers program, where teachers have been designated by either a content specialist or their school principal as being a teacher interested in learning more about blended learning and fine-tuning some instructional strategies with technology in the classroom on a given content or curriculum or unit.
So if I were a teacher of math, let's say, then I could come and I would be using these things all about math.
Yes, and what's really neat is we have the opportunity to ask Jody Albers to come in and work also, so that we have a strong, standards-based, good mathematical, strong mathematical approach.
Oh, so I can have a little one-on-one
Exactly.
conversation with her. And,
Exactly. And incorporate that into the instructional technology so that it comes together in a nice, meaningful, standards-based, sound sort of way. This year, our cohort is going to take a little bit different shape. It's going to happen after school. And then there's some interesting things that teachers might be able to get for particiting in the program.
Like prizes?
Well, I wouldn't say prizes. I would say incentives. Would be lovely. Yes.
Ooh, fun stuff, huh?
Yeah. So we're really excited about that, and we have a few interested teachers already. So we're really excited to bring that to fruition. Probably more in the new year, like late January. Yeah.
Now these folks who come together, because I know you've had cohorts before, so they leave with a wealth of technology knowledge, and do they share it around back at their school, because they're now a sort
Sure,
of
they're
an
kind of an expert, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're asked to be kind of like the leader or the expert then at their building. So then they share information back with their staff members. We're also asked then to go into buildings and help principals, teachers one-on-one, PLCs and faculty meetings. And then along with that, we also have our conference every year. So this April, we'll have our third annual EdTech Innovator Conference. So those leaders and the people who've been to our trainings all year long will come and be the presenters. And then they'll teach the other teachers about what they're doing in their classroom and how to use the technology. Like telling them how they use it, but also like some of the things that they've learned along the way so that other people could learn from them. In the past 2 years, we've had 100 educators come to both conferences. So that's really exciting. We always have a big turnout.
Yes, yes, yes. I've been to both of them myself.
Yep, exactly.
And have really enjoyed just that whole structure and the fact that teachers are learning from other teachers. So I think that is so powerful, because then you say to yourself, oh, well, I'm a teacher, they're a teacher. If they can do it, you know, I bet I could do it too.
Right.
Exactly.
And we ask our presenters as well as us, like we will go into the how-tos to use each program or software or website, whatever it is, but we want to focus on instructional strategies and creating like authentic, student-centered tasks, but that are also tied to the standards, because that's ultimately the teacher's main job, teaching to the standards.
Right, right. Absolutely. So we heard a little bit from Dr. Shaw about technology changing day-to-day instruction, and you've talked about instructional strategies that teachers can use. You know, what have you seen? How does it change the day-to-day instruction?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first and foremost is, you know, when people think about using instructional technology in the classroom, they think about word processing and writing papers, and they think that that is where, and maybe a Google search, as was talked about earlier, right? A Google search for replacing that encyclopedia. However, really instructional technology is so much more than either of those two. It's really harnessing the opportunity for students, because it's got to be student-centered, so for students to communicate and collaborate with either their peers in their classroom or outside their classroom or outside even their school building. It can go as far as to another country. So if they know of experts out there in a field of study, for example, then they can bring in those experts into their own learning or tap into them as information for research. So I think Dr. Shaw referenced the creativity aspect of it as well, that students are encouraged to be creative in their demonstration of mastery of the contents, so that no longer are we still giving the same multiple choice tests that maybe we've used for the last 6 years, but we're stepping out and asking kids to be creative in showing what exactly they learned and then reflecting on why that was important and what does that learning mean to them.
So really making it their own.
Exactly.
Going out and seeking the knowledge rather than just reading the textbook, answering the multiple choice questions.
Absolutely.
Right, and instead of a lecture format, or like where the teacher is the holder of the information and giving the information to the students can then take ownership of that information and find it themselves and create their own understanding. We also have teachers who are creating videos that then the students can rewatch at home to help them do their homework or classwork, and we also have parents watching those videos too. When I was in school, we'd learn something at school in the way the teacher taught it, and then when I didn't remember or needed help, my dad would reteach it to me a different way. And while he was right, it wasn't the way and using the vocabulary and the language that the teacher used. So now I could go home and rewatch those videos that my teacher created and then relearn the concepts that way. So now the students are watching videos at home, and then in class they can do other things like having rich discussions or creating authentic projects that the teacher can help them on, and the teacher can give targeted instruction as well.
And so really using that together time in class with the face-to-face and the students talking to each other and discussing something historical or an entrepreneurial adventure that they're getting ready to set out on, or civics. You know, there are lots of things happening in our world today where we want kids to really be civic minded and be involved in their government,
Absolutely.
etc. In addition to, of course, being creative, painting, musically, physically, and all of those kinds of things.
Most definitely.
So that brings me to, I'm so glad you mentioned your dad, because that brings me to family supports. Do we have any supports? I'm going to ask sort of two questions. Do we have any supports to help families? Now, the online videos would certainly be one of them. And then do we have any real suggestions for how families can support their students?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, as with anything educationally based, it is important to have a strong home-school connection. And it's a partnership, no matter what the issue, or no matter what the content, or no matter what the item is. So that being said, one of the best ways for parents to help support a student is simply making sure the Chromebook gets charged every night, and that every morning the Chromebook comes to school.
Well,
just like that math textbook.
Exactly.
Just like the pencil.
It's the simple things that so often get overlooked. But you're right. How can the child participate in all of these rich activities if their Chromebook is lacking batteries?
It almost needs to come right in there with that pencil. We wouldn't necessarily think about sending a child to school without a pencil. We need to start thinking about the fact that technology is becoming more transparent in the classroom, and kind of like that pencil that we don't think about, we need to maybe right now in time think very cognizantly of having that Chromebook available, because it's used in pretty much every content area at this point.
Right, so to sort of work that into their routine, that, you know, this is what you do. After you're done your homework, you bring the Chromebook over to the living room shelf and you plug it in, and that's where it is, that's where it lives.
And I love that you brought up routine, Judith, because that's part of what Courtney and I want to communicate with the parents as well, that they should set up a routine for themselves and establish good, healthy online parameters for their students. So we have a couple of them that we've kind of want to highlight today, as a matter of fact.
We like the idea of the charging station, a central charging station, so that the device isn't going up to the child's bedroom and then the adult can't monitor what's happening on the device. Maybe it's like the living room, like you said, or the kitchen. And along with that, the student should be using the device in that central area so that the adult can monitor what's going on.
We have supports for that too, though, right? I mean, we have all of the legally required filters and that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. And Red Clay has gone above and beyond in one of the software pieces that we've purchased called Gaggle. And what Gaggle does is monitor the Google Drive and email of our students, and specifically what they're looking for falls into one of the 7 categories that the SIPA federal guidelines regulates as being harmful to youth under the age of 13, though Gaggle applies to all of our students. But things such as nudity, pornography, academic dishonesty, weapons, illicit drugs or drug paraphernalia, and so forth. So if anything like that were to show up within the context of a student drive or in their email, then Gaggle is notified. What's neat about Gaggle is that they have a human that then is monitoring those flags that come in, so that if a child is doing a legitimate research paper on drugs, then the human can say, okay, well, this material is showing up in their drive, and they are emailing a person based upon information for a research paper, versus maybe somebody who's a student who's going out there and looking for something that could potentially be harmful. If the adult notices that there is harm potential for the child, then they will first contact the child. So maybe if there's a bad word, they would contact the child and say, you have used inappropriate language. If it continues, we'll contact your school authorities. So then it moves up the chain of command to the school authority, and then to district personnel. And if it is deemed that the child is at immediate danger, in other words, there are signs of potential self-harm, then Gaggle themselves will contact the authorities and send the police or ambulance to the area that the student has on file for on check, yes. So we have those parameters in place, as well as we use Google Safe Search that also monitors monitors websites based upon those same categories. And we also use something called GoGuardian that also filters based upon those 7 criteria.
So we've really gone well above and beyond, but I take Courtney's point as well, that doesn't mean that parents don't have to know as well, and they don't, that they still need to be active in terms of what their child is doing and what their child is looking at on the internet.
Yep. And a lot of parents don't know, which I didn't know until we just got a new modem at my house, that there are parental controls that a parent can set with their own internet providers. So if Red Clay's not doing enough, or if you want to block other things like social media, you can do those things in your own home and block and filter content using the parental controls from your internet provider.
Absolutely.
So this all started back with establishing routines so that the child is working where there are other people around and where other people can, at any moment, walk behind them and check out what's on their screen and things like that.
And every year, teachers do deliver digital citizenship and safety lessons to every student in Red Clay. But again, it's just still important for parents to turn around and re-deliver and reinforce those responsibilities and ideas of safety around the internet and online use.
Absolutely. I think good, healthy digital citizenship is important to hear it as many times as you can, and it's not just something that happens in school on the school network. It happens on a phone, it happens on a device, it happens on a computer.
Right. So things that we don't control, but that the family can control.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a lot of supports that we offer families. There's information online too.
Yes.
On Red Clay's website, there's a technology family support page. So there's lots of information there about Google, Schoology, SIPA compliance, internet safety. We also direct parents to the Beau Biden Foundation has a lot of information about family and safety online for students. And Common Sense Media has a lot of information too, just for families.
And all of this is on
our website. We have an instructional technology website that we have information for families, but then there is just like a parent page for all kinds of information, like about choice night, and all that kind of stuff, but there's technology there too.
Yep, that's under redclayschools.com and then parent resources.
redclayschools.com and parent resources.
Yes.
And so we offer a lot of family supports. And
yes, we do.
Anything else that parents can do, they can help establish routines. They can make sure that Chromebook is plugged in.
And coming back to school.
And coming back to school, and that they can monitor at home.
Yeah. Be active in your students' use of technology. A lot of times, Ed, we hear from teachers too that the adult wants to be the expert when they're using technology. And the students know more than the adults. So even if you feel like that's the case, you can still ask questions and you can still monitor and you can still be actively engaged, just like with anything, in what's going on with your student.
I think one last thing that I'd like to point out too is some schools have sent home parent codes for Schoology, encouraging parents to set up their own parent access to the student account on Schoology. Remember, that's that online classroom area where students or parents are able to see assignments that have been given, due dates, grades. They may not be able to get in and see the nitty-gritty individual documents because the teacher is sharing that with the student, not with the parent, but they certainly are going to see on the calendar when things are due and when things have been missed, and then the grades. Yes. As well as, of course, HACC, our Home Access Center, which is absolutely 100% the official grade book for Red Clay. So although Schoology does contain grades and teachers grade in Schoology, they sync to the hack. So come report card time, the grade that's showing in Home Access Center is the official grade for the course.
So I can be monitoring however often I feel like I need to, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever, in terms of my particular child to see what it is they're looking at and what their responsibilities are.
Correct.
Very nice.
Absolutely.
Very nice. All supported by technology. Oh my goodness. It's so different from when I went to school,
different
for
world,
sure.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Very
It is
different.
a very different world. But thank you. Thank you for sharing that information with us and giving that advice to parents. That's really, really helpful. And all that work you do with teachers to help them create more interesting activities for students to be doing for real.
Absolutely.
So we are going to take a short break now. So be sure to come back. We have one more guest on this interesting topic.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
In Red Clay, there's more to being a school nurse than just giving out Band-Aids. Sure, we help prevent the spread of flu and other diseases, but did you also know that we work with physicians to coordinate care? We administer medication and manage chronic disease. We coordinate sports physicals and provide education to students, staff, and communities. We deal with stomach aches, sprains, and nosebleeds. We conduct screenings for hearing, vision, and so much more. Plus, we document it all. And sure, we give out the occasional Band-Aid or two as well. Red Clay Nurses, keeping your kids healthy is what we do best.
Well, welcome back. I hope you had a good break, and I hope you're ready for our next guest, Mr. Chris McClean. He's a social studies teacher at Conrad Schools of Science. Chris, well, hey, thank you for coming. Your students are going to miss you while you're here taping, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, they are.
I am sure they will. Now, we've been talking about technology and how technology has changed the way folks teach in their classroom. And, whoa, way back when I was a instructional technology coach, you were one of the you were in the forefront of using technology in the classroom. So how has it changed? How's it changed what you do with kids?
It's changed a lot, even since then. I teach a AP World History class, and that class is very challenging because, one, it's a lot of content. It starts with the beginning of mankind and goes all the way to present. And second, and second, I teach it to 10th graders. And so for most 10th graders, that's their first experience in an AP class.
Right,
And
right.
so one of the
AP classes, for our viewers, AP classes are college level classes that kids take in high school, and you have to pass a test at the end. So it's not just passing the class, it's also passing the test.
Right.
That's given by the advanced placement folks.
And the main thing that the students have to master to pass the test is the historical thinking skills. And in order to teach the amount of content that I need to for the course and to teach the historical thinking skills, what I've started doing is I flip my classroom. And so that way,
Dr. Shaw was talking about flipping classrooms.
yes, he was. And what that enabled me to do is the students can get the content knowledge at home. And then when they come to class, we can do different activities to practice those skills.
So you're doing the practicing of the historical thinking, which I'm assuming is kind of like thinking like a historian. How do historians think? How do they put information together? So you can do all that active thinking stuff together.
Right.
Because that's the strength of people.
Right.
And the content they do on their own.
Right. The thinking skills are like being able to compare and contrast, change over time, periodization. So those kind of skills we can practice in class with them. And then at home, they can watch the lectures. I chose to make my own lectures. However, if other teachers would like to flip their classroom, there's a lot of lectures already out there made by other teachers. So if you wanted to start, you can start slow and have the students watch other teachers' lectures, but I started to create my own.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me about you, because then you're in control of it, and
Right.
you're knowing that your kids are getting exactly what you want them to get.
Yes.
I'm thinking of other resources that we have as a district, like with Discovery Learning, Discovery Education, that Discovery channel that we subscribe to, that teachers could be getting some content from there. And of course, there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of junk on YouTube, but there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube as well, and
Yes.
TeacherTube, which maybe some people, and SchoolTube, which
Yes.
maybe some people don't know about.
There's especially for history classes, there's a crash course video series that was made by, I believe he was another teacher, but those videos are good for content as well, and so people use those as well.
And what else do you use the technology for? Like, you've got the videos on there. Do you have, like, do you add discussions? Do you add?
Yes, I add discussions. I use this program called Edpuzzle, where I could put the videos up on the internet, and then the students watch it on Edpuzzle, and I can add in there questions for the students. So as they watch it, it'll stop. And there's also a button that you can use that the students can't fast forward ahead before they get to the questions. But,
very nice, very nice. So they have to watch it.
Yeah, so they have to watch the video.
Well, they're only in 10th grade, you know, kid brain is going to want to, how can I take a shortcut?
Right.
How do students react to the flipped classroom? Like, do they take it seriously? Do they really listen to stuff at home? And
yeah, the students, they enjoy it, because for big change in my class is before the students would have to read maybe 2 or 3 chapters out of their textbook a week to gain that content knowledge. So now they can watch these videos. The videos are between 10 and 15 minutes long.
That's not, I'm thinking like 45 minutes or something. No, 10 or 15 minutes. That's
yeah.
great.
When I was researching, to do these flipped lectures, most of the research said you don't want to make the videos longer than 15 to 20 minutes. So my videos are between 10 and 15 minutes. I also give the students a calendar for the month. And so they'll have all the videos that they need to watch for the whole month. And I tell them they could watch them anytime they want during the month, as long as they have it finished before that class period that we're going to talk about that topic.
And they seem to like that then?
Yes, they like that. But it also gives us time to do different activities in the class as well. Just last week we did a mock trial with Genghis Khan, and so so at home they got the
old Genghis,
So at home they got the content on the Mongols, and then when we came to class, we set up a little courtroom. We had a defense team and the prosecution team. We had a guest judge come in, and set up the little
who was
court
the
case.
guest judge? Was it another student or a teacher?
For one class, we had another teacher. We had a 7th grade history teacher in my building come in. And then for the second period, we had the school resource officer. He came in and served as the
judge.
guest judge.
Yeah.
So that they enjoy doing different activities like that, or when we do debates in class, things like that. So since I don't have to lecture on the content in class, it gives us time to do different activities like that.
Right, so they really get to use the content, and there's your critical thinking, historical thinking skills coming into play, where they're actually getting to practice those in an authentic situation. If some of them are thinking, well, I wonder if a lawyer, being a lawyer or being, having some law aspect would be interesting for me.
Yeah.
So,
I also teach a senior class, a contemporary political issues class. And the technology is really, really great for that class. With the midterm elections, we were able to do a lot of research on the different candidates, the different things going on around the country. The way I structure that class is we introduce a topic, and then I allow them to research pros and cons on the topic. And then the next class, we have a debate as a group on the topic. And then at the end, they write a position paper on how they feel. So the topic right now that we're doing is gun control. And so they were able to research all the different things, pro and con for gun control. And next class, we're going to have a debate on it.
interesting, interesting. It's so much more active and so much more immersive than my history class when I went to school, I have to say. So, can you tell us a success that you had with technology that you just would not have been able to do it unless you had technology?
My AP World class that I was telling you about with the flipped classroom, I've seen a lot of success with the technology from the flipped classroom. When I first started, one of the reasons why I decided to try the flipped classroom, 4 years ago, I was disappointed with my AP scores. We were below the national average, and the national average is usually around like 51, 52%, and that year we were around 35%. So I tried this flipped classroom, and in my first year trying the flipped classroom, the average rose in my class to 64%.
Wow.
Right. And the next year I made a few changes to it. I started giving the students like a Cornell note sheet for them to take as they watched the lecture. And then we saw more of an increase that next year, the second year of the flipped classroom, it rose to 75, 76%. And then this past year was my third year doing it, and we had the biggest gain. We actually rose to 91% passage rate.
Oh my gosh, 91% of the students actually earned the credit.
Yes, they scored
They
a
earned
3-year
the college-
higher.
The,
three-year
the
higher.
college credit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's such an interesting way to go about it too. To say, oh, I'm dissatisfied with their performance. How can I manipulate the environment so that the kids are naturally going to do better? They're going to be more interested. So that's a huge success. And you're right. Without doing a flipped classroom, you really couldn't do that. No, because I would have had to take class time to teach the content. Right, and then they would have had to do all that reading at home. And
Right.
this seems to honor their time as well as their thought processes. And I'm sure the motivation of wanting to win this debate or wanting to make a good argument to the judge will extend even beyond that, because they'll think, oh, well, what if he gives us that situation again? Well, I know how to prepare. I know how to think about that.
They get extremely competitive. The Mongol court case, the group that lost, they were like, oh, when are we doing the next one? And so this next unit that we're going to start, it'll be on like exploration. And so I actually have one that we're going to do on the slave trade. And so they're already ready for this next court case on the slave trade.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming today, Chris. I would love to be a student in your class. There are so many interesting opportunities to learn there that I wish I had had such an interesting history class.
Thank you.
For sure. Well, thank you. And I would like to thank all of our guests today for taking time out of their busy schedules to be here with us. Thank you for tuning in to Red Clay this month, and I hope to see you next month.